Kristina Peters. I am the e-learning specialist at the Nebraska Department of Education, but my history also involves working with ELL students and ESL students at Omaha Public Schools and most recently Ralston Public Schools. So ELL students have a special place in my heart. And so today we're going to talk about meeting language objectives with technology. And fortunately I have had quite a bit of experience with elementary students using technology and being ELL students. So I hope you learned a little something new today. Specifically, we're looking at Sketch and Show Me. So if you have an iPad with you, you can go ahead and open those up and even download if you don't have those. And we'll look at those a little bit closer. Now, we will try to make sure that everything is connected and that I can show you on the iPad. Right now, I can't even get Show Me to log in, so of course. Luckily, there's a desktop component, so I can show you some examples. So, because we are an ELL, talking ELL, for our objectives, we have these in I can statements, which you will see in an ELL classroom, or if you have ELL students. So we can discover the difference between content and language objectives, we can formulate language objectives, and we can learn about Sketch and Show Me, see some student examples, and discuss how to apply those apps in our classroom. Now, this is something as far as language objectives that you can take many courses on and still never fully understand, so please understand that I'm going to highlight this in a very short amount of time. And I think that this matrix that Jane Hill from McCrell that we use at the department will hopefully help you in order to formulate those. So let's talk about content objectives versus language objectives. Your content objective really guides your lesson. That's talking about specific content, gives you purpose for the content that you're going to talk about, whether it's in math, whether it's in reading, guided reading, social studies, science, any of those specific content areas. The language objectives are ways to identify ways that you're going to use language to engage in the content that you're going to be teaching. It also helps narrow the focus. So if you have new students, especially newcomers where they might be of a low level of ESL or ELL students, this is really important for them because it helps them focus on what they have to do. So then they're not overwhelmed with all the content that's being thrown out. They know specific objectives that they have to do. They know they're going to have to write vocabulary. They know that they're going to have to speak to a partner. So it really helps them identify and narrow the focus. Okay, so here's how you formulate a language objective. Again, this is a very quick way of doing this. So there's always a language function and there's the language structure. So a language function is going to be the objective and then what they're going to identify. The language structure then would be how they're going to do that. Is it going to be with a sentence starter? Is it going to be with vocabulary? Is it going to be a mini lesson as far as life language or a real life application? The correct verb tense, things like that. So you would choose, you always have your language function and then you have your language structure. You can choose one of the language structures or you can do all three. So here's the matrix that I'm talking about. And this explains, I think, things pretty easily. So you would have your language function. So if you are talking about guided reading and you are comparing a fiction book to a nonfiction book, maybe it's, give me an example. I'm trying to think of something. Sorry, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Nonfiction, let's say that you're talking about specific animals, penguins, okay? And you're comparing that with Tacky the penguin. So you have your fiction and your nonfiction. So then you would have this function of compare and contrast. So that would be your language function. The way that they do that then is you would add the language structure. You can compare those two by giving them a sentence starter. So Tacky is a fictional penguin versus, and then insert whatever the penguin might be from the nonfiction book. That would also work for keywords, specific vocabulary. You will find this in any of your content areas, but especially your social sciences. Social studies and science are very vocabulary heavy. So you want to make sure that the students are well aware of what their vocabulary is that they're going to have to apply during the lesson. And then again, the mini language lesson would be your command form of verb, the word order. Of course, you have a lot of Spanish speakers, specifically in the state of Nebraska, that are coming in. I see a few nods. They have a different word order in their sentences. the way that they have adjectives and nouns. You have to constantly be practicing the way that they put those in order. So you have a function and then you have a structure, and that's how you have a language objective. So let's look at our first app, and this is Sketch. Sketch is a free app from Evernote. It allows you to annotate or mark up PDFs, screenshots, or photos. And once you're done, it can be saved in a variety of different ways, including to your camera roll if you're on your iPad. And I just learned that there's actually a desktop version for Mac too. So you can do meeting your language objectives through naming, labeling, comparing and contrasting, practicing key vocabulary. And I hope this is going to play. So my friend Matt Gomez is a kindergarten teacher down in Texas, and he gave me a few links that were from his website. And so these are Sketch must-have and Sketch 101 that he actually just posted last night. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, and it'll show you some basics on Sketch. Yeah?
Today we're going to be talking about one of my...
Good question. You do not have to have Evernote to have Sketch. Yes, you can actually bypass the login screen. Just say I'll do it later, and you can go straight to working on something. Now, if you want to go back and edit something that you've already done, then you would have to have an account. But you can start something new every time. Okay?
Favorite tech tools, which is Sketch. It's right here in the middle of the screen. I'm going to be using the mouse arrow to kind of point out to you what I'm doing on that iPad, which is being projected on my MacBook here. So if you see the arrow, it's just kind of showing you what I'm doing on the actual iPad since you can't see what my fingers are touching. So I'm going to open Sketch. One thing I'd like to point out about Sketch is that it's not only an app, it's also a web-based tool. So you don't need an iPad to use this tool. You could do it on any computer as long as you download the Sketch web-based tool. What you'll see here is my Sketch account. You can see I'm logged in. One thing that's important to note is that you do not need to be logged in or have an account to use Sketch. What having an account allows you to do is be able to edit previous sketches. So you can see I have a few on here that I could go back and edit at any time and resave. You lose that opportunity when you don't have an account, but it doesn't keep you from being able to use the tool. So I'm going to go over here and actually log out of the account so you can see what it looks like when you don't have an account. So you'll see here that here's Sketch. It's asking me to log in, but if you look down here at the very bottom, sorry that pops up, there's a button that says maybe later down at the very bottom. So I'm going to press maybe later, and that will allow me to use Sketch without having an account. So for those of you who are not allowed to have emails on the iPad, or kids aren't allowed to have emails, this is an easy way to kind of work around that. You can see there's various ways that you can start a sketch. 99% of the time we start with choose a photo right here in the middle. You can also start with a blank, you can start with a map. Down there at the bottom you can see it says capture from the web. My experience is that when you try to find an image within the app itself, it has a few glitches. So in my classroom, I prefer to have the kids find the image beforehand, save it to their iPad or save it to their computer, and then open it by selecting choose a photo from their device. Another thing that's important to note about Sketch is that you can annotate on PDFs, which is a new feature. So I'm going to start by choosing a photo. I can also take a photo in the classroom, but I'm going to start by looking on my iPad for a photo. And you can see I have various folders in here. In my classroom, this is my personal iPad, but in my class iPads, they only have one folder, and I preload typically the pictures that I want them to work on until later in the year, because I teach kindergarten. For the upper grades, they could easily find their own images, save them to the camera roll, and go from that. But that's a process that my kids have to learn. So in my class, we're going to just go down here to a folder, and we're just going to find the elephant, and it's going to preload that in there. As you can see on the right-hand side here, I have a bunch of tools. The majority of the time my kids use these top two tools, the arrow and the text bar, or the text tool. That's pretty much what we use a majority of the time. You can see that the arrow is highlighted, so I can tap anywhere on the screen and an arrow will show up on the screen. I can also draw on the screen, so I'm just drawing with my finger, and it'll make the arrow whatever size I want it to be. To edit one of the arrows, all you have to do is tap on them. You see the two little blue dots pop up. Now I can edit, I can drag, I can reposition them however I want on there. So I'm going to reposition these two. You can see if you have both of them highlighted, they both can be edited. So I'm just going to edit this one. So
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop here because I want you to talk to your elbow partner and talk about how you can see this used with ELL students specifically for vocabulary. Go ahead and talk to your person that's sitting next to you. Okay, I do have this in the slides, so if you want to go back to it later to kind of see Matt's tutorial, it's available. He also addresses, let's see, the must-have. Let me go to that really quickly. And it kind of just walks you through, there's no actual video, but it just walks you through the same information. You can bypass the login screen. These are your options when it first comes up, and then things that you can do. One of the features that I really like about Skitch is to adhere to FERPA and SIPA laws as far as showing kids' faces. This actually allows you to go ahead and digitize so that you can't technically see their face, which is really good working with students. I know school districts have different policies regarding taking photos with students. Ralston Public Schools had 3 or more in a picture and then you could use it. But if I had just one student who wanted to show me something and hold up a picture, then I would have to blur the face or just not take a picture with their face, just whatever they were showing me. So this is a great option as far as that Skitch allows. And then there's also this feature right here, which is a primary primary poster for Skitch. So this was from appsandeducation.blogspot.com, and it just kind of gives you a brief overview of what you would do, and especially for elementary students. So they go in, they get their picture, and then they decide what they want to do from there. And so it kind of shows you, these are your choices that you would have on the side of the picture, and it tells you what you would see when you got to use that. Now with ELLs, you would want them primarily labeling, which you would use arrows and words specifically. Laura and I had talked about if they worked with a partner, you could even do something where they took a picture of their worksheet, so they weren't actually doing the work on the worksheet, and then they could work together with their partner, maybe even the native speaker, depending on their level of language. Then they could work on that together and label that together. So here's another example from Matt Gomez, and he had the kindergartners. This was after a lesson on Martin Luther King Jr., and they talked about adjectives. So then this is his son that he actually used as an example, but he would take pictures of each student, and then they would think of 3 to 6 adjectives that would describe themselves, and then they even got opinions from their friends, and then they would label themselves. Again, another application. And this is Gage again. Gage is one of Matt's favorite kids. I'm not sure, he has 3. But this was for an introductory activity when they first started school, so it was an all about me. So they were able to draw the pictures, put them in their interests, their activities, things that they do, so that he got a clearer picture of who these new students were that were coming in. And for your ELL students, especially if they're newcomers or if they're low language levels, then you have them coming in and they can point to photos. They might not be able to necessarily verbalize what the photos are, but they're going to know what pizza looks like, or they're going to know what a TV looks like. So they can definitely do that. This was from Nicole on Twitter last night. I put out a tweet saying that I needed some examples of Skitch use in the classroom, and so Nicole teaches kindergarten. And you can see that they actually did a really good job. This is inventive spelling, which if you do Lucy Calkins writing or writer's workshop, inventive spelling goes all the way up through, it's usually K2, and that's very normal. So I thought they did a great job as far as trying to say what smoke was coming from the chimney and that's a porch. They might not hear that R yet, so then poach. They were chasing the dog, or that it's green grass and they don't know those the phonetic rules yet. So this is a great example by a kindergartner. This is a first grade synonym web. So they put the word in the middle and then they created synonyms from there. And now if you're working with ELLs, you want to try to use cooperative learning strategies. Are you all familiar with cooperative learning strategies? Okay. So a great thing to do for this would be numbered heads together is how I would set them up. And that would be you put them at a table and you number them 1, 2, 3, 4, usually 4 at a table. And you have them work on something together. And they all work on it together, and each group is working on whatever they're doing together. And then you would call a number out, say all the 2s stand up. And the 2s would have to stand up and then say what their group did. So it holds each student accountable because you never know which number you're going to call out. But then they could show the other students what they had done on the sketch as well. Now let's move into Show Me. Show Me takes Sketch a little bit further. Sketch is a static image, even though you can do PDFs and photos. I would say Show Me goes a little bit further because then you can add voice. And it allows you to create tutorials, or just allows the students to kind of do a think aloud. So again, you're meeting your language objectives by practicing your key vocabulary. You're using sentence starters, which you would usually have on the board for them to practice. You're identifying different things, specifically key vocabulary. And then they're verbalizing the process. So the great folks at ESU 3 in La Vista have this PDF for Show Me Basics. And so it just walks you through on what you would do for Show Me. And this is also in the presentation, so you can go back and look at this later. But I want to see if my iPad is working to be able to use Show Me, because it is a great app. It is open, okay. All right. Ooh, you even have the handle? This is nice. Okay. I'm just going to hold it up like this because I don't want to connect and screw everything up. So you have a whiteboard, and that's all you get. Now you can import images. Maybe. There it goes. You can choose a photo, take a photo, or search images on the web. I will give you advice. Do not do a search for images on the web. We've done searches before. It does not always bring back the right kind of search results, and sometimes they're inappropriate. So if you are going to have them search for something, go ahead and preload it on the iPad so that they can just pull it from the camera roll. Just one piece of advice that I've been there, done that, and just avoid that. So they can choose a photo from the camera roll, or they can take a photo. Let's take a photo. So then it just pulls up your camera. Maybe.
I might have snapped it wrong. If I snapped it wrong, then sorry, I did.
Oh, it's fine.
I cleaned it up very often.
Okay. Hey, you're ahead of me. I can't even get on right now, so. Okay.
I should move it.
Let me try that again. Take photo. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to take a photo of the actual screen that we're using right now. Shows up, and you just put use photo. And now the students can rotate it, especially if you're using a book, you're going to have to rotate it usually. Go ahead and click done when you're ready. And then you can pick your color up here to start circling things, doing whatever. You can go in and erase, but the best part is when you can start adding voice to it. This is a projector screen. Right now it's showing my presentation that I'm introducing to a bunch of pre-service teachers and teachers that are already in the classroom. So I can start my voice and then I can pause my voice. So I can go along the way, which is nice. Now, if I want to clear what I've already done, go ahead and clear all. And then I can add what my next part of my video would be, okay? From there, you would do save your Show Me, and you can make it private or public. That's really up to you. I make them private usually. It does allow me to go back and listen to what I've already recorded. Save. Then you would title it. I'm just going to title this test. You would determine which topic it meets, almost like tagging something. So this was, let's say, English. And then down here on this button is a little lock, and that is the private feature. Most of my students, I wanted it only to be seen by me and not necessarily by everyone that has a Show Me account in the gallery. So then I would click on the lock, and it says Show Me is private, and then I'm done. It's a very, very simple process. To sign in, you do have to create an account. However, there are new features that allow you to create a classroom account. so that you would just create one classroom that all the students would log in, and they wouldn't have their individual accounts to log in and keeping track of all the passwords and things like that. So that one works really well. I was going to show you, hopefully this plays, a video of my second graders last year. Maybe. Okay. Let me log in then and try to do it from here. Again, there is the desktop version, which is very nice. So you can go in here too. The trick is always remembering what your account was too. And it's on the other account. Okay, well I'll go to my next example at least. For third grade, I had them identifying three-dimensional shapes. And so they would go around the room, talk about why it was a three-dimensional shape.
Because it has two faces and it has no sides and no edges.
So this is a great assessment. It's a great formative assessment. I can tell whether or not they understood the vocabulary that I had given them. Vertices, faces, edges on a three-dimensional shape, and then they were able to go around the room, find real objects, and then record themselves talking through it. Why is it a three-dimensional shape? From there, I will show you, we did a nonfiction boot camp where I was able to work with third and fourth graders across all levels, whether they were ELL or not. And we talked about nonfiction text features and nonfiction text structures. Specifically more of as a review right before NISA, because we knew that that was something that we wanted to make sure that they had mastered before we had NISA in April. So this is fourth graders. Fernanda and Elmer were ELLs, and then Gage was in speech and language. So they all worked together, and they had the assistance of my para at the time. And they were walking through their actual science textbook to look at nonfiction text features. And I hope you can hear them.
Hello, my name is Fernanda. This is Elmer, and we're talking about ecosystems. This is the table of contents in our content in our science book. Our names are Elmer, Fernanda, and Gage. And these are the headings of our science book. These numbers tells you what pages what page number is the chapter you want to look at.
And it's upside down.
This is the glossary, and it shows you, and it goes in A, B, in alphabetical order, and it has blended words that show gives you the definition, just like a dictionary. And it tells you on the specific word that you need to know.
It has blonded words, not bolded words.
It is like
blonded.
a dictionary.
And let's see, I have one more example. And this would be a sixth grader. And this was the whole class that was participating at one time, so I apologize if it's really noisy. She's very soft-spoken, but this is a sixth grader who was on her way of exiting the ELL program. She was very proficient in her ELDA, which is the English Language Development Assessment, and her NISA. So when they're proficient in both, they get to exit the program. And she was just doing a demonstration on how she could use the Show Me app to talk about her vocabulary words.
When you get something has been provided to you, like when you're using a
she's talking about equipping someone when they have, when they're on a bicycle.
You are so you can stay holding your hat on your elbows and on your knees.
So they are equipped with protection so that they're safe when they're riding their bicycles. The last example I had, which I don't know again if it will play, would be storytelling. We'll just go to his site. And this is Matt Gomez again. In kindergarten, writing can obviously prevent students from telling their story for storytelling, even their writing process. So what he did was use an app called Feltboard, and they created their scene or their setting of the story, and then they used a different app called EduCreations, which is very similar to Show Me, and Laura was just talking about this beforehand. It does not require a login, which is one of the reasons why Matt uses this as well, especially with kindergartners, so that he would have students come up and tell their story.
The astronauts are on the moon. They flew on a rocket ship to get to the moon. The astronauts are exploring the moon. They found on the moon gold and a flag.
Wouldn't it be awesome to find gold on the moon? All right. So here are some different resources. That matrix that I showed at the very beginning that talked about the language function and the language structure, that's actually from the book by Jane Hill and Cynthia Bjork, Classroom Instruction That Works with English Language Learners. It's a great resource to have. Matt Gomez is a great friend of mine, and his website is mattbgomez.com. And then there's two different training sites that ESU3 has all about Sketch that I can just kind of show you really quickly. So it has more information, especially the features of the different components or tools on Sketch and ways that you might apply them with your lessons. And then the ESU3 and Ralston training site for Show Me and different ways that you could apply Show Me in the different levels, specifically in the area of math. And that's kind of what they looked at. So let's check our objectives and make sure that we met them. I believe so. We can discover the difference between content and language objectives. We can formulate language objectives with that and the language function and the language structure. And then we learned about Sketch and Show Me. Saw some student examples. And then we can discuss how to apply. We have a few minutes so we can discuss how we can do that. Or if you guys want to wrap it up, I'm totally okay with that too. Are we good? What do you guys think of these apps? Good? Would you use them? Yes? Awesome. You like Show Me a lot? So do I.
I like the voice add-on to the picture.
Yes.
The description.
Especially to hear the students as they're getting better at language. I have a few more examples I could probably show. One of the ways that we use this, I co-taught math with second grade last year, and one of the ways that we use this was with place value and expanded notation. And so we gave each of the students, it was actually the same number just to try this with. We gave them the same number and then asked them to draw their tens, the hundreds, tens, and ones, and then to do the expanded notation. And I was pleasantly surprised with the way that they came back with their, Again, there are ways to create a classroom account, and I would highly suggest that. All of the students knew my login. They knew my username and my password, which is fine, but it is nice to give them one of their own. Here's Brian.
Use 73. Operate box and 7 lines. 5, 6, 7, and put 3 circles. 1, 2, 3. you in standard form. 1, 2, 3. Then plus 17 plus 3 equals 1 and 3.
So you could use this as a very quick formative assessment too, either as a pre-test or a post-test, or just along the way, just to kind of gauge and see what your students are doing and how they're doing with that specific skill. Brian was a level 1, which means that he was very emerging essentially at that point, and so he had a really hard time with language, and he did a great job with that, I thought. Expanded notation, but it's all right, I'll take it. I knew what he meant. So the resources from this presentation and this actual presentation are on the TechEdge site, so if you want to go back there and refer to anything that you saw today, you're more than welcome there. Thank you all for coming.